in order to deal with surges like what we've had, or even the day-to-day ailments that may afflict members of those communities. The recently established Kentucky Rural Hospital Loan Program is making $20 million in low-interest loans available to hospitals throughout the Commonwealth. These funds will directly impact 1.8 million rural Kentuckians and help ensure every Kentucky resident has access to quality health care. In fact, the program's impact is already being felt as the first loan has been made. That's to Pineville Community Health Center that received the first approval under the program, which came online in September. The minister said the approval, these are the hospital administrators for Pineville Community Health Center, of the $1 million low-interest loan will support its current staff of 102 people and to help the facility with new equipment and expanded services for residents and visitors in Bell County and the surrounding Eastern Kentucky region. The impact of this funding will be felt in other areas as well. The availability of better healthcare service creates a thriving community, makes us healthy enough to have the workforce necessary to take advantage of a once-in-a-lifetime economic role and momentum that we are on. Through the Kentucky Rural Hospital Loan Program, eligible hospitals can receive at least $25,000 and up to $1 million per facility with a 1% fixed interest rate, something all the rest of us would love in our loans. Hospitals located in Kentucky counties with populations of less than 50,000 residents are eligible to apply. The funds will assist to maintain or upgrade existing facilities, retain and increase staff, and provide healthcare services not currently available in each community. I want to thank everyone who had a hand in making this program a reality. That includes State Representative Danny Bentley, who sponsored the legislation that created the program itself. The only way to achieve our goal of ensuring a brighter future for every Kentuckian is to make sure every Kentuckian has access to quality and affordable health care. The program is a major step towards achieving that goal. I want to commend leaders at PCHC for being proactive and capitalizing on this new funding opportunity, and I encourage administrators at eligible hospitals to consider applying for the program. Now, I want to share a message from the leadership of that first loan recipient, PCHC.
PCHC is honored to be the first recipient of the money from the Kentucky Rural Hospital Loan Program. This money will allow us to continue offering services to rural Kentucky. Before I turn it over to H.D. Cannington, I'd like to thank some folks. First, it's Governor Andy Beshear. The next is the Secretary of Economic Development Cabinet and the staff. They made this loan seamless and very easy. I'd like to thank Ed Harris, Bell County Economic Development Director. I'd like to thank Albie Brock, Bell County Judge Executive. I'd like to thank Rocky Adkins, he's Chief Advisor to the Governor. I'd like to thank Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Eric Friedlander. I'd also like to thank the staff at PCHC. In particular, we have with us the Chief of Staff here at PCHC, Dr. Martha Combs-Woolham. We also have Dr. Mohan and some of the staff here behind us. Without the combined efforts of all these folks, this loan would not be possible for PCHC. And now I'd like to introduce H.D. Cannington, the interim CEO of PCHC.
Thank you, Catherine. As many of you may know, Pineville Community Health Center has been serving patients in this community and saving lives since 1938. And then all of a sudden, here comes COVID, which means that we're taking care of more patients, sicker patients that have special requirements, and we really struggled here with having adequate staff, adequate supplies, which often were on back order, so that we could make sure that we took care of our patients. We were fortunate to receive the first approval and received a low-income loan for $1 million. This $1 million has allowed us to hire up staff, get the supplies that we need so that we can reopen our ICU here at Pineville Community Health Center. This will allow us to keep more patients here at home, treat patients that have critical care needs, and it keeps us from having to transport patients, which puts a strain on the family members, the friends of patients, in order to visit the patients while they're recovering. I would like to again thank the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Vail County, and the Pineville community for all of their love, their support, and prayers to help us keep doing what we do. And now I would like to introduce Angie Jones, who is an RN here at the hospital and a lifelong resident of Pineville.
I've been a nurse here at Pineville Hospital for over 16 years. My mother was actually a nurse here for over 34 years. This has always been our hospital for my whole family and of course the community. Our hospital over the last few years has had some difficult times. And then, as HC said, when COVID hit, it was just even more challenges. During COVID, our community, as small as it is, we lost neighbors, friends, family members. I lost my father last August to COVID. During that time, he was able to be cared for here at the hospital, and I so thank the staff, all my coworkers, Dr. Mohon, Dr. Combs, everyone that took such excellent care of him. This loan that we're getting is going to help us tremendously. We'll be able to help the community more patients, provide better, even more quality care, more vaccines, more education, and more testing. So once again, thank you for the loan. Thank you for all that it's going to help us provide.
All right, next, on the economic development front, we have a new facility that recently opened in Bourbon County. Cut Send is a same-day manufacturer of customized laser-cut metals, headquartered in Reno, Nevada. They work on everything from stainless steel to aluminum and even carbon fiber. Now the company has established a presence in our Commonwealth, creating 75 full-time jobs with a nearly $4 million investment. They have already added 10 of those positions, with the facility expected to be fully staffed next year. Jobs include engineers, production specialists, and laser technicians, amongst other roles. Located within a day's drive of 2/3 of the United States population, Kentucky is a prime location for logistics and distribution, and that was a major factor in bringing this company to the Commonwealth. This new 37,000-foot square facility will improve the company's ability to serve customers throughout the Midwest and all along the East Coast. Cut Send was established in 2019, and it is growing fast. We are thrilled that it is now in Kentucky. I want to thank the company's leadership for selecting us and for quickly coming online to create good, strong jobs for our residents. This is a great addition to Paris and to Bourbon County. I also want to highlight the recent announcement of Kentucky's latest Build Ready site in Richmond, better positioning the community to attract new business to the area. Last week, Lieutenant Governor Coleman and local officials in Madison County cut the ribbon on the newly certified track in the Richmond Industrial Park, bringing the total number of active Build Ready sites in the state to 18. The site was previously selected for funding through the state's Product Development Initiative, which assists with site and building improvement projects to ensure we can compete with anybody in the United States in the site selection process. Speed to market plays a critical role. I can tell you, it plays a critical role in convincing companies to come here instead of other places. And that can be everything from the cooperation with government, the permitting process, but it's also how ready the site is as far as infrastructure. If you think about the great story that is Ford and SK's decision to make Kentucky the electric vehicle battery capital of the world, you think about all the infrastructure over the years that was invested in that Glendale site. This is what we are doing at this site and others throughout the Commonwealth. And you can expect to have a very significant fund in my next proposed budget to help work to get more sites up to build ready so that we can continue this incredible economic role where we are already past $10.4 billion of new investment, which is a record. And I believe before the end of the year, there is more to come. But this upgraded site in Richmond includes a 174,500 square foot building pad. It's on more than 21 acres, and it's located near I-75 with easy access to 64 and Lexington's Bluegrass Airport. So it is in an ideal spot. It is not going to sit for long, and we can't wait to continue our role by finding a company to locate here. But we wanted to show this, to highlight and to celebrate it, because it takes a lot of work by the state, by localities, and by others to get to that point where you're making the announcement that a new business is coming. And with so many businesses coming, we've got to take the next generation of sites and get them up and ready so that, honestly, we don't run out. And we actually have concerns about large and medium sites and running out of those that are build ready. So good investments. So talking about good investments, earlier this week, I made a really exciting announcement about what will be included in my recommended budget that will make an impact for Louisville families and a special place in that city, Waterfront Park. For so many people in Louisville or who come to visit from around the state, this park isn't just a place, it's an experience. It's a backdrop for some of their happiest moments with families and friends. It's where I took my small kids across the bridge because there's frozen yogurt on the other side, and where I remember so many great times from them growing up. For 15 years, my home, I lived in two during that period, was not far from where this park is located. This experience, this accessibility, and what it does for the community should be available for everyone in that city. That's why in my upcoming budget proposal, I'm going to include $10 million over 2 years to support the Waterfront Park expansion between 10th and 14th Street. The total cost of the expansion is almost $50 million, making it the largest public amenity investment in West Louisville in decades. The expansion will give more families access to the riverfront and to be open to green space. The 22-acre expansion will be located in the Portland neighborhood under Interstate 64 between the Louisville Riverwalk and the Rowan Street. The expansion will include plazas, gardens, and a large observation pier at the river's edge that can accommodate events, performances, weddings, and other gatherings. This project is going to create one waterfront. One of the neatest parts about it is it's going to be built in phases when funding is sufficient. The first one is a 1.5 outdoor experiential learning area that the Science Center, the Kentucky Science Center, is helping to design. So it's not just a green space, it is a green learning space. Representative Pamela Stevenson, this is in her district, talked about how this is a win for everyone. And I know once it's in that recommended budget, that the area leaders will be going to work on ensuring that it's ultimately in the final passed budget. But let's just take a second and remember that a budget isn't just a set of numbers, it is a values document. And to me, this is a value. That park is incredible, but it should be available and accessible to all Louisvillians. And as we get in this budget process, remember, it shouldn't be about the governor, the legislature, Democrats or Republicans, House or Senate. It's about our people that we serve and the ability to do good things for them. This is about the people of West Louisville, and I think they deserve Waterfront Park extended to them. All right, next, more good news for Kentucky. Federal sources have announced that we're going to receive over $18 million to aid households that have fallen behind on paying their water bills or who are facing disconnection of service or who have already had their utilities disconnected as a result of the pandemic. The coronavirus, as a reason for falling behind on bills, shouldn't throw up a barrier for Kentuckians. You know, this hit us hard. It hit us fast, and it's been going on a long time. And it shouldn't be the reason that people lose access to clean drinking water or access to wastewater. Clean drinking water is a basic human right, especially in the midst of a pandemic. So Kentuckians who are eligible for this help can apply now for affordable drinking water and wastewater subsidies from the federal low-income household water assistance program. The application process is open as of yesterday. This is just its second day. The funding will cover delinquent water bills, past due charges, fees, and taxes for drinking and wastewater services. This temporary program is being administered through Kentucky's community action agencies that serve all 120 counties. So no matter where you live, you are eligible. If you think you qualify for assistance, fill out the application. There's a box on the application to check that'll let you that will make it known that you'd like to apply. Just check the box and submit your most recent bill and proof of current water crisis. This can include a disconnect notice. As a reminder, there is another fund that is already out there that can also help you. That is the Team Kentucky HHERF Fund, which you can visit teamkyhherf.ky.gov, and that is the state's eviction relief fund, plus can help on utilities. To date, that state program has provided more than $82.9 million in assistance payments. We launched it March of 2021, and from then to now, $82.9 million in help for our Kentucky families. 74.5 of that was in rental assistance, and 9.1 million was in utility assistance. Total of 23,250 individual payments have been processed, assisting 16,680 households that won't be behind on their bills, that won't be behind on their rent, that won't come out of this pandemic owing. Average assistance per household is nearly $5,000. We still have significant funds in it. So if you are in need, and I should probably repeat this just about every week, please go to that fund, apply. We can help. All right, let's move into our COVID update. I will take the first crack and then hand it over to Dr. Stack. We're going to be talking about end of the last week and how the numbers compare. Here's what's happening overall. Our cases are going up. Now, last week was Thanksgiving week with significantly fewer people tested. And as we'll show you in the graph, there were fewer cases last week than the week before. But wait until you see the positivity graph. I don't believe there's any question that this week will be more than the last 2 weeks. We had over 3,000 cases for the first time since October 1st yesterday. I anticipate we will have over 2,000 cases again today. We are seeing cases escalate. Now, I hope that it is temporary, or perhaps we will just be at a much larger plateau where there are ups and there are downs. But at the moment, what we're seeing from the past several weeks, acknowledging what Thanksgiving week is an increase in our cases, is a significant increase in positivity, and is an increase in hospitalizations. It appears in the ICU, though not yet in our ventilator usage. So let's show the stair-stepper chart of cases. So we had 2 weeks in a row of increases. And remember, that's basically Sunday through Wednesday of Thanksgiving week is the last bar that you see there. Yes, there were some tests done later than that, but not as many processed. If this graph had been a regular week, the most recent week would have been higher than the week before it. Case in point, let's look at our test positivity stair-stepper chart. A significant increase that we've seen. Today's positivity rate will be over 8%. Yesterday's was as well. Remember, we were celebrating when we had finally gotten down to about 5%, and we were already on the increase. Now, we have been talking about positivity rate and how much it means now versus before, because testing can expand and contract as we see more virus. I think what this says is we are in an escalation again at the moment. We don't know how long it would last. We don't know if it's behavior driven. It could be driven by the holidays or the winter. But we are overall, we believe, seeing more of, and this is the Delta variant, more cases of it. Now, I do believe part of that is waning immunity. I now know personally a number of folks that have ultimately gotten a mild case of COVID because they put off getting their booster. So if we want to prevent escalations as we move forward, and Dr. Stack will talk about Omicron, we not only have to get more people vaccinated, we not only have to continue testing so we can isolate when we get it, but we absolutely have to get as many people boosted with that booster shot as possible. If it's been 6 months since you were vaccinated, you are not nearly as protected as you were right after that. Get the booster shot, and at least against Delta, you're in pretty good shape. And we know you'll be in the best shape we can get you in for Omicron as we learn more about it. So let's look at the hospitalizations. All right, we now have enough data. It's been enough time with enough days to know we are seeing an increase in hospitalizations. That's not the plateau going up and down. It could be temporary, but at the moment, certainly we are seeing more people being hospitalized. I want to say over the last week, we've increased about 11%. I think that was the last report that we had, right around there in hospitalizations. So we need to watch that carefully. We appear to be seeing the same thing in ICUs. It's not quite as dramatic. It does bob up and down a little more, but an overall upward slope in our ICU graph. Now the better news, but I think that our ventilator numbers obviously trail our cases and our hospitalizations and our ICUs. That is more flat. I don't think we're ready to extrapolate just on the very end of that, whether we're seeing a real increase there or not. Now, we do have better treatments than ever before. And that's also going to factor into this graph, and really should in the ICU graph as well. The more antibody treatments we have, though we've seen an uptick in requests for those. And remember, there is scarcity out there. When the pills come online that you can take, other treatments, we've gotten better. Even with Delta, as sick as it makes you, we've gotten better at treating our folks. And when our hospitals aren't overwhelmed, we can give even better treatment to folks. So the way that ultimately we get out of this, as we know, are vaccines. Today, want to both give you the overall number, but I'll read in a minute some changes we've made in our dashboard so that we can now not only see first shots, but fully vaccinated as well as boosters. But let's give the overall numbers. As of today, 2,682,277. That's 2,682,277 Kentuckians have had at least their first shot of hope. Fully vaccinated Kentuckians, 2,335,538. And we'll go to percentages in a minute, but 60% of all Kentuckians now, we crossed that 60% threshold, have received at least one shot. 53% of all Kentuckians, and this includes non-eligible Kentuckians, have received 2 shots. And now we can report that 581,442 Kentuckians have gotten a booster. So that's about 13% of our population has gotten 3 shots, unless they got the J&J, but they're still to the boosted stage. Now, what I can say is the booster numbers are better on a daily basis than the new vaccination numbers. So day over day, about 4,865 first vaccinations. And it's good that we're still seeing those, right? They're not as high as we would like, but they are fairly steady, not as high as we would like. But during that same reporting period, 12,631 booster shots. So people are getting the message, but we need to push the message. Probably the most important message right now in this fight is go get your booster shot. Fayette County leading the way. 72% of all residents of Fayette County have had at least one shot. 71% in Woodford County. I know they're competitive. They want to take over that top spot, so keep pushing. Jefferson County, 68%. Campbell County, 66%. Perry County, 66%. So look at that. Central Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, it can be done anywhere. We just got to keep pushing. So let's look at how that breaks down demographically in age. If we can bring that one up. Again, now 60% of all Kentuckians, that's everybody who lives in the state, has had at least one shot. Let me first start by, I want to acknowledge it's not enough, and it's not enough to fight COVID, but this has never been done in the history of the world before. You know, it hadn't been a year since the vaccines were shipped out. That was December 13th. It hadn't been a year since the very first person who got a vaccine. That's December 15th. They weren't widely available really until March to the public. We got 60% of every man, woman, and child that lives in this state vaccinated. I mean, it's hard when we're fighting death itself, and that's what we are in COVID. To say that that's an amazing number, it is. It's never been done in the history of the world. And how we've met the largest logistics challenge of getting the vaccines out. to everywhere in that short period of time is nothing short of amazing. In fact, the network we built for vaccines is so robust that it can now handle boosters or kids or anything that we are able to add. And that's going to be a huge advantage moving forward. All the logistic pieces, the things that had never been done before, we've been able to do. Now it's just trying to reach more and more Kentuckians. So let's move from all Kentuckians to those eligible. If you're under 5, you can't get one right now. So 64% of every Kentuckian eligible has received their at least one shot, and of those that can make their own healthcare decisions, 18 and up, 72% have received it. That, again, in any other time would be an incredible number. Let's break down the age demographics for the first 3. They're the same, 75 and up. 90% of all Kentuckians. Again, we need to continue to push that. That's the most vulnerable. 65 to 74. We also lose a lot of people in that area. That's waning immunity for these groups. We need to make sure we get the boosters to everybody who's gotten it and then get everybody else the vaccine. 50 to 64 holding at 77%. 40 to 49 up 1%. We really have seen gains, slow gains, but in this group, and that's because a lot more people in this age group are dying from Delta than did Alpha or the original. 25 to 39, still at 58. 1 point up, 18 to 24. 1 point up, 16 and 17-year-olds. 1 point up in 12 to 15-year-olds. And 3 points up in 5 to 11-year-olds. Now 11% of that part of the population vaccinated, and they haven't been eligible for all that long. Looking at vaccination status of hospitalization, deaths, cases. This is since March 1st where vaccines started to become available. This graph, if you think about previous ones we've had, first of all, shows you're much better off being vaccinated. We cannot lose that, right? Unvaccinated people making up 82% of cases, 85% of hospitalizations, 83% of deaths. But this graph also shows waning immunity. Right? These numbers were almost all in the 90s, except for deaths before waning immunity, and they can get back there. Now, these numbers should convince anybody to get a vaccine, but if you get a booster, the numbers are even better. And as of now, with waning immunity, when we look at the rate of COVID cases and vaccinations, unvaccinated versus not, 3.5 times better off to be vaccinated. And again, this includes waning immunity. If you get the booster, you're a lot better off than that. You can also start to see a little of an uptick there, can't you? From October to November. So certainly we hope that we don't see the type of escalation we just got through, but we need to be careful. We need to get boosted when appropriate. We need to wear masks. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Stack, who's going to talk to us about Omicron and a few other issues. And that's that, yes, we ought to be worried about Omicron, but Delta is killing our people right now.
Thank you, Governor Beshear. Good afternoon, everyone. James, you would go to my slides, please. So I'm going to talk first about Omicron and then just augment a little bit of what the governor said. So Omicron was the very first person known to have this was found in San Diego, I think it was, on December 1st. It was a person who returned from travel from South Africa. They had mild illness and they apparently are recovering well. And they were very intensively contact traced so that they were able to isolate that individual and people they were exposed to. That does not appear to have been a source of spread from that individual. Just before I got up here, apparently the news is reporting now in Minnesota, they may have found a traveler who had it. They only traveled domestically, as I understand, were fully vaccinated, but had not yet been boosted. And I'll come back to that because I think the governor's message is really important to emphasize on boosters. The state of Kentucky has not yet seen a case. We have sentinel surveillance processes in place where laboratories who have the capacity to notice an abnormal pattern on the PCR tests will sample. We also have a proportion of samples that are tested in commercial labs throughout the state. And importantly, the nation only used to have the ability to sequence about 8,000 samples a week, and apparently can now sample as many as 80,000 samples a week. And so they've expanded this capacity nationwide very aggressively over the last year. So it is here. It will become present in communities all over the United States. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the question is, what is the impact and what do we do about it? The governor released a 2-minute video on Monday, and I think his message is spot on. It is important to be careful and concerned. It is not a time to panic. We have much better tools now than we did when this pandemic started last year, but we should be careful and concerned because our future is not outside our control, and the way we choose to act and behave in response to this current problem will help to determine very clearly what the future looks like. So with Omicron, it has, one of the reasons it was so concerning so quickly is that it has 50 or more different variations or mutations in its genetic code. 30 or more of those directly affect the spike protein. And that's the part, I know you've all seen this for too many times now over the last almost 2 years. That's like a tennis ball on the end of a stick. And that ball part is what attaches to our cells and gets the virus into our cells to cause the problems. When we either are previously infected and develop antibodies that way, or we get vaccinated and develop antibodies, those antibodies attach to that ball on the end of the stick and prevent it from entering our cells to reduce either getting infected in the first place and definitely to reduce the severity of the illness if we do get infected. The concern here is that with so many different mutations is, will this impair somehow the protective value of either vaccinated immunity or natural immunity? And we don't know yet. Time will tell if that's the case. The vaccine manufacturers, should the need arise, are able to adapt those mRNA vaccines relatively quickly. So it'll happen even faster than it did before if it's necessary. But right now, we know that the vaccine still is incredibly effective. And if you get boosted, really incredibly effective, it puts you back up at that over 90% protection. And 99.9% of all the virus we're finding in the United States right now is still Delta variant. And we know the vaccines still work for that, and the boosters make them incredibly effective like they used to be. So it's really important. The single most important thing all of us can do right now is, if we're not vaccinated, is hopefully make that choice to get vaccinated. And if you're eligible for a booster, that's anyone 18 or older, 6 months after a Pfizer or Moderna, or 2 months after a first J&J, please go get that booster. It'll keep you safe and help minimize the spread of this virus. The other concerns about the Omicron, there's other mutations in the genetic code, the 20 or more others. We don't know. Will it make the virus more transmissible? Will it spread more easily between people? We don't know if it'll make the disease more severe. Will people get more ill and suffer worse consequences? So far, the history has reported that most of the people who've had this have relatively typical illness for COVID, and it has not yet appeared more severe, but it'll take time to see that, as well as the transmission. And then the final thing is that immune impact, where it can undermine the protective value of antibodies, could also have impact on the monoclonal antibodies, which essentially are laboratory synthesized antibodies. So it could impact adversely the value of some of those therapeutic interventions we have now. Again, we have got to take all the steps we can to minimize the spread of the virus across the entire world, not just Kentucky, because as long as the virus is spreading rapidly through large numbers of people, it will mutate, and by sheer dumb luck and chance, it gets better over time. Next slide, please. So I've mentioned this already. Vaccination is the single most important thing we can all do, and everyone 5 and older is eligible to get vaccinated now. Please, I hope you'll consider getting vaccinated if you haven't, and if you are eligible for a booster, please go get one. You can go to vaccines.gov, and you can access the same website via the KY COVID-19 website. You can put in a zip code, and it'll map within 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles, 25 miles. You can pick your vaccine type, and it will map you directly to places that are close to you. You can click on a link, and often you can schedule it online, and in the span of 5 to 10 minutes be finished. I did that for my booster and went to a Kroger, and it was effortless, and I was in and out of Kroger in 15 minutes to get the shot and be done. So I'd encourage you all to take advantage of that. If we can Move on to the next slide, please. These are the steps. I know I sound like a broken record, but these things work. You've got to get vaccinated, get boosted. We need you to wear your masks if you're in indoor public places. I know none of us are fond of this, and we're not asking you to wear them outdoors. We're not asking you to wear them when you're on with your private family or all fully vaccinated small gatherings. But when you are in public places or you are in any large crowds, you really should wear a mask. And certainly if you're unvaccinated, you should wear a mask because the risk is significant. If you die in Kentucky since July 1st from COVID-19 and you are under 60 years of age, more than 94% chance you're unvaccinated. And that age population is almost entirely a preventable disease through vaccination. Please, if you feel you have symptoms that could be COVID, please get tested. There's more and more abundant opportunities to get testing. Please do that. And the White House and the President are working to make testing covered by private insurers that you could go buy at drugstores, and are going to work real hard to try to make free testing available that you can do in home. We're shifting to a different phase of the virus where it'll be less where you go to a laboratory to get a test and more where you get a lower cost test and take responsibility for yourself and test yourself. And if you are positive, you stay home and take the responsible steps necessary to minimize the spread of disease. And the last point is good advice, even pre-COVID. If you are sick, please stay home. If you have a fever, if you have a bad cold, if you have a sore throat, please stay home until you feel better. We don't need any of these diseases spreading. To the extent we can minimize the spread of any disease, it'll help keep us all safer and help minimize confusion about do other people have COVID or do they just have the common cold. Folks, this has been a long, tiring road. All of us are tired. All of us would like this to be over. As I drive and go about my daily activities, people are out and about and doing things. Society has come back to nearly full activity in almost all domains. The things we're asking folks to do now are much, much more tailored. Get vaccinated, stay home if you're sick, get tested if you think you have COVID, and please still use these masks when you are in particularly high-risk settings, which certainly is indoor spaces around other people who are not in your immediate household. We will get through this. It will be better. It is improved already, and it will get better going forward. But Omicron shows us that the disease is not yet finished with us. And if we take our eye off the ball, all these gains could unfortunately be turn into setbacks if we don't take careful steps. So thank you very much, and thank you, Governor.
And Dr. Stack is going to stay with us for questions afterwards. As we mentioned, our dashboard now on ky.covid.gov as it relates to vaccines will not just have the first dose, which is what we were very concerned with, most concerned with, getting at least one into folks. But now with the need for boosters, we'll show both percentage of Kentuckians with a first dose, with a second dose, which is termed fully vaccinated, and now with the booster shot. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm excited to invite everyone to the Capitol this Saturday, December 4th, as we light the state's Christmas tree during the 73rd Annual Frankfort Christmas Parade. The parade's theme is Superhero Christmas, to honor all of our amazing healthcare heroes, like our first responders, service members, local health leaders, doctors, nurses, and so many more. There'll be an outdoor viewing area for the parade, and we will light the Christmas tree. I'm pretty sure there'll be a special guest that the kids will want to see. There'll be food trucks, holiday games, crafts, and so much more for people to enjoy. We're asking everyone to wear the ugliest Christmas sweater that they can find, but we are happy to see you whether you can dig that one out or not. Those wishing to take part in the festivities are encouraged to arrive Saturday by 5 p.m. The parade's going to go on High Street, make its way up Capitol Avenue to the viewing area between the Capitol and the Capitol Annex building. Again, the very last float will be pretty special, as Santa Claus is going to come visit us early here in Frankfort and here in Kentucky. For those unable to attend, the parade will be live streamed on the Frankfort Plant Board's Facebook and YouTube page, and it'll be aired live locally in Frankfort on Channel 10. Really excited about this. There's a lot that we couldn't do last year. This is an outdoor activity. It may be cold, but it will be safe, and we're excited to return to it. And finally, our team, Kentucky All-Star, an incredible individual representing her community and making a difference for our families. I want to recognize a Kentuckian representing our Commonwealth on the national and now the international stage. Elle Smith, a Louisville journalist at WHAS 11, who became Miss Kentucky and this week was crowned Miss USA. She'll now compete for the title of Miss Universe in Israel on December the 12th. Her words about Kentucky say it all. After her Miss USA win, she shared this message: God is so good. I'm thrilled and honored to be your Miss USA 2021. To the great state of Kentucky, you will forever have my heart. You believed and loved on me since I was crowned in May, and there is no other state I would have wanted to represent on the Miss USA stage. I head to Israel to compete for the title of Miss Universe. I ask for prayers as I travel to represent the United States of America on the biggest stage in the world. Let's go for that triple crown. Good luck, Elle. We are so proud of you. We're rooting for you. Thanks for representing Team Kentucky well. All right. We have 5 journalists in person today. It looks like we have 6 on the phone, and in the order they were written for me, we'll start with Tom Latek.
Well, thank you, Governor. And first of all, a belated happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And then I've got a question for Dr. Stack, strangely enough.
Great.
And this has to do with Omicron. You mentioned that the number of tests where you can determine what the variant is has gone up from 8 to 80,000 per week. How long does it take for one of those to be performed that they can get a result?
Right. So the sequencing takes some time. The sequencing can take 2 to 4 days, depending on where you're doing it, because you have to run the test and it takes a number of hours on the machine. Then you have to analyze the data and determine what pattern it fits. So there's an informatics part, not just the laboratory part. So it adds more time. There is a pattern that this particular variant shows. When you use high complexity laboratory testing and sophisticated molecular diagnostic labs, some of the technologies test for 3 different targets on the virus, and one of them doesn't show up in the test. So what they'll see is that the machine will report positive on item 1, item 2, but negative on item 3. That's called an S gene dropout pattern. And that showed up with the Alpha variant, which was the original variant that we associate with United Kingdom. It did not show up with Delta, and everything now is Delta. So if we find an S gene dropout, the likelihood that it could be Omicron is higher. And so all of those will be sequenced probably so that we can look and find if we're having more Omicron. So there's a poor man's way to check for it, which is the S gene dropout. But those all have to be sequenced then to verify if it really is Omicron. So I hope that helps.
And if the question didn't pick up, that was really a timing question on when we might know whether or not we have a case or not. And I think the answer is at least days from when you might have a suspicious case that you don't think is Delta right off, and then when we'll find out. We will be transparent about when we have our first case. People should expect, and in many ways this feels like pre-March 6th of last year. People should expect we will have cases. And again, we don't yet know if it causes more severe disease or not. So again, we know one's out there. We know we all got to get vaccinated to prevent future variants, but we don't necessarily know that this one will be harsher than Delta, which has been really harsh. Michael Burke.
One for the doctor as well.
Sure.
And then one for you as well.
Okay.
It's sort of off topic, but it's hard to believe in a week or 2 years from your inauguration. At the halfway point,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything you, well, give us one thing that you're most proud of, and maybe the one thing you wish you really had a do-over on at this halfway point.
You know, it's been a wild 2 years for everybody. And it's even hard to process that it's been 2 years. We've got the dark difficulty that is COVID, and many nights I know all of us couldn't sleep over and over, not knowing where the world was going and what it would mean, and what the future would be for my kids. Not knowing if we'd see breakdowns in different areas of society. So very proud, even with the losses that we've had, that we are still here fighting together. Processing that with, the economic momentum that we are on. We're doing things we've never, ever seen in Kentucky, and we're going to be forever changed in a positive way because of this. Do-overs are hard because, many of these decisions have had to be battlefield decisions that you can't wait on and that you can't put in the normal, let's spend 4 months of government process to try to reach agreement with everybody. I made the best decisions I could most of the time for the lives of the people of Kentucky. And if that's made things more difficult in other areas going forward, if it's harmed relationships, it was still worth it if it saved lives. Steve?
Doc, I know a lot of this is guesswork, not only as it relates to Omicron, but the virus in general. But do you envision a scenario, a world where we are going to be taking boosters every 6 months now for the foreseeable future?
Do I envision a world where we'll need boosters? Probably. Do I know it'll be every 6 months? No, because I think what they're finding in early studies, now remember, we're learning this in real time. We'll know a lot more in future years and look back and it'll seem more obvious in hindsight. But it may well be that a booster gives you longer protection because every time our immune system is stimulated by this, the response gets a little more intense. And so hopefully it won't be necessary every 6 months, but it could be that it's an annual occurrence over time. And again, it depends. Mutations usually make the virus, or usually mean nothing. The virus usually mutates in ways that has no benefit to the virus at all. Occasionally, it'd be great if it became more transmissible but less dangerous. And then it just exposed people and everyone was exposed and infected and you have protection and you don't have to worry about it. You get a vaccine and the virus becomes more mild and the whole thing becomes less of an issue. It becomes more like the flu. So there's a whole lot of different ways this could still evolve in the future. But I don't think people should dwell on, oh my gosh, I'll have to get a shot every 6 months. I don't think we're at that point yet. And it may not be that necessary.
Next, we got Chelsea Jones. You want Dr. Stepp? Yeah.
So I know the governor mentioned that, Lafayette County is leading the way with over 70% vaccinated. And I know when we first started the pandemic, health officials were saying we need herd immunity, and then we can kind of go back to some sense of normalcy. At this point, with these new variants, is that herd immunity just now a thing of the past?
No, I don't think so. Remember, it's not a direct line for some of this stuff. Like if we could have flipped a switch, if we could have just waved a magic wand and 100% of the human population was all fully vaccinated in March of this past year, Omicron probably would have never developed. Delta probably would have never developed because it wouldn't have been spreading to hundreds of millions, tens or hundreds of millions of people and having all those chances to multiply. So no, I don't think, and I would call it community immunity, but I don't think that is a lost aspirational goal. If we got our vaccination rates up over 90%, and if we were able to help the rest of the world also get their vaccination rates up, we could get the reproductive capacity of this virus to fall less than 1, meaning that each person doesn't infect someone else, and then it starts to wind down and fade away. That's how we got rid of things like smallpox, and hopefully how we'll get rid of polio, or we'll get rid of polio hopefully someday, is you drive it down and down and down, and we've never had a condition where the human population has pulled together this aggressively on a single infection in such a short period of time. So no, I think community immunity is still a possibility. It's just that the longer we have large percents of the population unvaccinated, the longer this lingers and the more the problem kind of festers.
So the way I'd translate that is we're only going to finally defeat COVID as one world. And it's going to still take some time until we can get enough vaccines to the entire world. Our goal in this country should be to be as protected as we can be, to protect one another until we reach that point. And we believe that we can do that with a lot of normalcy. But does it require us to take some extra steps to mask, certainly in schools, and to get more people vaccinated? Yes, but there's still going to be a time delay until this is available everywhere in the world. Lawrence Smith.
Even with the Delta variant, you mentioned cases were declining. The positivity rate was declining. Now it's ticked back up again. Why? What's going on? What's changed?
We'll need a little more data to be able to say definitively what's changed. But typically, behavior around this time of the year changes. It gets colder. We come inside. We have lots of holiday gatherings, which it's not because it's a holiday. It's because a whole lot of people get inside and get real close. And I think that there's certainly fatigue. You always feel better when our cases are declining, and we always want to go out and celebrate in different ways. The fact that we have come off such an awful increase, which we had before, the exponential increase, may mean that whatever escalation we're seeing right now will be smaller. It would be hard to imagine it being the same. It would certainly be traumatic if it is. But I do think that people, whether it's Omicron or the fact that our Delta cases are going up, ought to say, let's keep it up. I know we're gonna make some different decisions. I know we're gonna get together. I'm gonna get together with my family. I did on Thanksgiving. We will on Christmas. But let's just take a couple extra steps to protect one another. Joe.
We're almost asking a question that isn't COVID related, but the $10 million for Waterfront Park specifically,
Yep.
the budget proposal. What conversations have you had with Republican leadership on this specific topic, and do you think this is something that they're open to, since obviously, they're the ones that essentially write the budget and approve it?
So they don't write the budget. The budget is written by the governor, who submits a recommendation, and then, for lack of a better term, the legislature edits it and puts it in final term. When you look at the process, could they gut it all and put something totally different in? Yes, but the starting place is always the governor's budget. So I haven't had conversation with legislative leaders of either party about what my recommended budget's going to be. We're going to have those at one time together. But I think it's more than fair to communicate to the public what my values are that are going to be in that budget, why I'm putting it together in the way that I am. We're going to have the best budget we have had in 50 years. And don't we believe, if we're going to have the best budget we have in 50 years, that the residents of West Louisville deserve an extension of Waterfront Park? I certainly do. And this gives them the time and the community the time to truly make the push that needs to be made to ensure that it's included in the budget. And as much process as people may want to try to put on this of, well, is the governor talking to these people or is the legislators talking to these people? It's really about whether you think it should be in there or not, regardless of what branch of government you're in. We can afford it. It should be there. Let's put all the partisanship or process aside. Let's just live by our values and make sure it's in that final budget. Debbie Yetter from the Courier-Journal.
Hi, Governor. Do you or Dr. Stack happen to know what Kentucky's capacity is in terms of testing for the new variant Omicron, or maybe another? Is there a percentage of tests that you all are able, or samples you all are able to examine?
Yeah, we'll have Dr. Stack answer that. And once Debbie's finished, we'll go to Stu Johnson.
I haven't been here so much. I'm rusty. I think what the governor meant to say is I'll explain it and then he'll translate it, because he's had to clean up for me a few times. So Debbie, I wish I could give you a explicit answer. We tend to sequence ourselves through our network in Kentucky. I don't know, a few percent, 3 to 5% typically of the specimens that we process in Kentucky, but that's only part of it. There's that huge national network that the federal government oversees. So there's a larger proportion. Remember, it's not about sequencing every specimen. We don't need to do that. It's about sequencing enough specimens to know where the virus is and when it's present and if it's mutating. So I would say about right now, it's a few percent, somewhere between 3 to 5% of the specimens we sequence in Kentucky on a regular basis. And that's in addition to what the federal government does, which, as I understand from their briefing, could be about 80,000 specimens a week, which is pretty substantial in its own right. So.
And my only addition is we also will specifically send suspicious samples, cases, people that we're surprised might be positive or maybe their case is different in some way. Those can be selected through our local health departments, our hospitals, and others to be sequenced. Stu Johnson.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. Dr. Stack mentioned just a bit ago about the goal, I guess, of community immunity of 90% someday. With Omicron looming and still Delta spreading, and at 60% here in Kentucky, Is there something different that can be done to increase vaccination rates?
Well, certainly, the number one thing that we need to be doing right now is for those willing to get vaccinated, or who have to get boosted. You know, we always look at the number of overall people vaccinated, but now they got to stay vaccinated, if that makes sense. So we've got those two levers that are there. What none of us know is ultimately the amount of people who get any of these variants, survive them, and how long their immunity, which we do believe is below the immunity you get from the vaccine, if we hit that magic number at that point at a time when the variant is not mutating. So almost millions of different factors that are hard to, that we don't even know all coming together at the same time. But I view it at this point as pretty simple. We're fighting death. Our battle right now is against death. This virus wants to kill as many of us as humanly possible, and we need to protect as many folks as possible. This isn't about this group of people versus another group of people. It's about how many people worldwide this thing is going to kill. And whether we reach immunity through vaccinations, or whether we reach immunity through vaccinations and those that get and don't survive or do survive, and we're a lot better off getting there on the vaccination side. I do believe every variant that we see ends up encouraging more people to get vaccinated, but that's not the way to win the ultimate battle. Certainly opening up to 5 to 11-year-olds is a big win as well. And again, it remains to be seen how Omicron will impact people in terms of severity. Delta variant made younger people a heck of a lot sicker, and I certainly hope that is not the case with this one. And if it's not, then it will be potentially of less concern than what we're facing right now. Melissa Patrick.
Hi, Governor. I have a question and a follow-up, if that's okay today. My first question is anyone in state government tracking schools and masking, including the Department of Education? And what is the current status of schools and masking in Kentucky?
So
a follow-up.
Sure.
And as we're headed into double-digit positivity rates, do you wish you had the authority to impose mask mandates?
The governor's office and the Department for Public Health, neither of us are tracking which schools are or are not requiring universal masking. Thank God my kid's school is. And what we're already seeing is that schools that went from universal masking to optional see an increase in cases. I believe in one district it more than tripled, with cases going up with a new variant here. And with kids below 18, less than half of which are going to be vaccinated right now. Going mask optional is a recipe for disaster, for spreading the virus, and for missing out on days of school. I hope that the kids would ultimately be fine. We've seen COVID long haul symptoms now impact more people than we ever thought, but you're certainly going to miss a lot of days at school, and test to stay can't work if you're not masking, because it's going to spread that much faster. That is an effective program. It is keeping more people in school, but only if we have universal masking. And this isn't me wanting kids to wear a mask in school. These are my kids, right? Everybody tries to push this on something else. These are my kids that I have to make sure have a mask on when they go to school. I don't want to do it, but I absolutely know we have to do it. And I know they're safer, and I know they were more likely to stay in school. My kids combined have missed one day this entire school year. And that's thanks to their school doing universal masking. Yes, I wish I had more authority to fight this virus. With cases increasing, certainly, I would have required school systems to have universal masking. I think it's a no-brainer, and I think the science shows that it's a no-brainer. And for areas of education, we ought to be doing the smart thing, and not what we feel is the pressure upon us. And I don't actually feel that Even in areas we might feel are tougher, that's true. I believe there are more parents who get it and want their kids to stay in school. What we would do in other areas, you always have to weigh the quality of the steps you're taking times the people who are willing to do it. Certainly, we still have requirements here in our state office buildings, but that's me as an employer. I haven't had one significant outbreak of COVID since we went back to masks in state government. That means you can get your driver's license. That means people are here to process claims. That means we have people showing up every single day, and we're not losing our productivity to provide services to the people of Kentucky. Bria Jones. I'm going late.
Hi, I was wondering if with some scientists saying that we missed the Omicron variant being around, it's been around longer than what we originally thought. Will we see more aggressive sequencing happening with the things that we are taking in to make sure that we don't miss it whenever it does reach Kentucky? And that might be a question that Dr. Stack answers, I'm not sure.
So it may be that Omicron has been in the United States longer. Normally we find out after something has already reached here and in Kentucky. I think once we start seeing cases, sure, we're going to ramp up testing or sequencing for it, which is already being ramped up in and of itself. But remember, those other questions still have to be asked. So if Omicron doesn't make people as sick as Delta, there will be less pressure and reason to sequence for it as much. I mean, the more dangerous adversary there would be Delta. If it's more transmissible, than Delta. If it gets through or does not get through the vaccines as much, all of those will really, I think, ultimately drive the amount of sequencing that we do. Austin Horn, just two more.
Thank you, Governor. I'm wondering if you have any comment on the ruling out of Jefferson County on HB 518, the bill on the state fair board appointments that you guys sued over.
Yes, the Jefferson Circuit Court made a ruling yesterday that the legislature couldn't take a board and move the majority of the appointments of that board from the governor to another constitutional officer. It's the right decision, because then you could just make a different constitutional officer the governor. And that is not what our Constitution was designed for. It was to ensure the governor is the governor. Yes, every constitutional office is important. I was in a different constitutional office, but the governor is the only constitutional office that has the constitutional duty to execute and faithfully execute the law. And thus, there is a reason that whether it's the majority of board appointments or other things have to fall under the governor. And could you imagine if that was not the case, the political yo-yo that could occur in any state, where if one party takes over the legislature and somebody in any constitutional office is not of their party, they just strip everything from that office and put it in another one. That would virtually eliminate the system that our Constitution is designed to create, which puts guardrails on that. But beyond that, I just hope we can move beyond things like this. You know, we got an amazing opportunity at infrastructure, at healthcare, education, and at jobs. We're sitting at a moment where we can change Kentucky for the good for the next 30 years. Are we really going to do this stuff in the next session? I hope not. Listen, we can all do good things in the roles that the Constitution has set for us. And I think I've shown as governor, whether or not it's how we address COVID or the greatest economic development year in our history, that I'll work really hard at this job. So let's put aside any of the silliness in this next one, and let's try to do the best we can do to advance Kentucky for all of our families. Andrea Ash, WHAS, with our last question.
Save the best for last, right? No, thanks, Governor. So we have actually two questions. One's from a viewer, so it doesn't count, right? So the first question from the viewer is, how would someone know if they have a variant? And is there a specific test that you can take that tells you if you have the variant? And then I know we've kind of talked about that, but just wanted to get like a succinct answer on that. And then our question is, international experts claim there's not enough sequencing being done worldwide to detect the variants quick enough to prevent community spread. And so we're just curious what specific plans are in place in the Commonwealth to kind of ramp up the surveillance here. I know Dr. Stack talked about, 3 to 5% are undergoing sequencing at the state level. So just curious about those efforts.
Well, certainly for us, we already sequence a certain number of cases of samples, no matter what. That gives us an idea of what's out there. But for a person who takes a test and is positive, it's important that they call their doctor. It's important that they potentially talk to the local health department. As we move towards at-home kits, it's important that we get the data if you're positive and that you talk to your doctor first for your treatment. But those healthcare providers are going to be in the best position to notice if your case seems different and if they need to get a direct sample to get it sequenced. It may be that you're vaccinated and you're boosted, and it's 2 weeks after your booster, and they say, well, that's really unusual. It could be that you may be showing just different symptoms than what we have seen before. But the only way to identify a suspicious case, one that might tell you if you've overall tested positive, if you have a variant, is to talk to that healthcare professional. And we need people to do that, more and more as we have these take-home tests. And actually, the question raises a really good need, I think, Dr. Stack, for us to put something up online that gives people guidance. If you've taken one of those at-home tests and you test positive, what are the steps that you should take to make sure you're getting the care you need, to make sure you're isolating, but also that it's being reported in the right way. So there's some of that on there right now, but I do want to work to make sure that we can make it really manageable and easy to use for folks that are out there. So thank you for raising both of those questions, and we'll work to get people not a pamphlet, but some easy to follow instructions. All right, we are over. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. Remember, breathe. We don't know if this one is going to be worse or not. We will have the information, and we have more tools than ever before. It's not done with us. We can't be done with it, but we can win, and we can protect each other. Thanks.